Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly podcast series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mekas. If this is your first time tuning in, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and listen wherever, and follow where you listen to your podcast. Today, she was impelled from early childhood experiences, has spent over a decade as a monastic nun exploring the path of presence. With a master's in theology, she lives to inspire others to connect to and live from divine love at their center. She is a TEDx speaker and former meditation faculty at the renowned Omega Institute, where communication skills ignite transformation on all levels, serving others to live of freedom and joy. She has served tens of thousands through her writing, speaking, retreats, online courses, and community, and has 2 new books here in 2023. Let's welcome to the show, Kimberly Brown. I stumbled a little bit. I'm like, the energy. I can't think.
You made it sound like a celebration nonetheless.
Yes. Welcome, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
So, how did this start? I mean, as a child, looking and seeking the divine and seeking enlightenment at such an early age, how did that all start for you?
Wow. You make me want to well up a little bit. The felt sense of that. I was really deeply connected to a desire for happiness and for understanding and for bliss.
Yeah.
I was really connected to it. And I think children in general are living that much freer than many of us adults find ourselves to be. But what I can speak for myself was that I had an orientation of being really curious about what it was all about. So I had the desire, and then experiences would happen, and I quickly drew distinctions like, wow, that actually makes me feel really happy in a way that doesn't stop. And wow, that doesn't really make me super happy when I eat that candy bar really fast, like, and it wasn't so much analyzing it, like I was sitting back like an observer. It was just this juiciness that led me into that path of curiosity and that deeper connection. And then I remembered all these different experiences. So as they were happening, they became my worldview, and it became really easy to refer to them. And as for any of us, I think when we have something of a timeless experience, when we touch in on it through our words or our memory, something comes alive for us in some degree because it is timeless. And I just happen to remember all those things. So it was kind of like a no-brainer to me. It's like, well, why would I want to be about anything else than this?
Yeah. Especially observing at such a young age. Like I said, all children are truthful. There's no preconceived notions. We're not bogged down with life that's going on around us. That we, children observe also what's going on around them and going and realize nobody, people aren't happy,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
and then comparing that with what you're searching for, that there's something greater out there.
Yes. Yeah. And you taste it.
Yeah.
It becomes something outside of you. Whether you're set up to know that at once or not, there's something happening inside you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, with using some of your terminology, um, what are your formative, illuminative experiences that impact you at such a young age?
Uh, One of them was when, do you want the story or the takeaway?
Um, a
Oh,
little bit of the story, and then the takeaway.
the takeaway. Okay. So I lived in Cincinnati and I used to love school and love walking to school. And in the autumn, it was especially dramatic for me. And one autumn, I was walking home and I had an experience of all nature dancing and like involved in this big movement. So I began whirling to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And at a certain moment, I came into complete physical stillness because the bliss was so great. And as I was standing there in this wordless appreciation for the deep state, out of nowhere, this deep angst came up from me as I looked at a tree. And the tree was wiggling in the wind, and the leaves had all changed colors. And then one leaf, it was like it reached out and grabbed me. And when
Yeah.
that leaf fell off the tree, unsolicited by me, a real angst of, oh my God, is that all life is about? Moving towards death? That was this little reaction, but from really deep within. But when it happened, because it was so deep, time stopped and it was revealed to me. This is my language then, not now. The leaf was in God and God was in the leaf. I was in God, God was in me, and that everything in life is about this being and becoming, period. Period. And it gave me such happiness that I have never experienced sadness around anything having to do with death. I mean, sadness over loss, but
Yeah.
not over the movement of death. So that formed a worldview for me that that's all I'm a part of, this creative process of consciousness coming into form. And what is that? And how do I assent to it more? And what's another iteration of that or another form of that? And how do I help others to have that kind of joy? So that is
Yeah.
one of them.
Wow. Yeah. That I felt that when you first described about the leaf, it's like, oh, it's just moving towards death. It just, yeah. And I feel a lot. It's not the fear of death, but it's something we all have to embrace, and just
Yeah.
none of us are going to get out of this alive. So, and that it should be treated as a celebration,
Yeah.
like a graduation.
Yeah.
What is your view on death?
It's a great thing. And I love the way you use the word celebration. And it's a tricky word too, right? Because it it puts us in a position to penetrate the paradox of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's the dramatic end of something we know is actually worthy of a celebration. And you can make the mental jump to that and find a certain degree of rest, but the real rest comes from the actual experience of that.
Yeah.
I my where I'm at, if I were to try to put it in a succinct statement, is I truly believe that all that is created is an expression of consciousness coming into form to discover and have the joy of celebrating itself. So when I truly see you, if I'm consciousness in that moment, seeing you, I will be celebrating you
Yeah. Yeah.
as a diverse expression of what I am. Yeah. And then, so I think then these transitions from this part of me, find a place in the larger whole in that.
And I've always thought this is a deep conversation now. Is I've always had that thought, this divine thought, the higher self is our expressions of ourselves throughout our life are, it's truly our spirit. It's our eternal self that's here in this body, that consciousness. And it's here in body physically.
Right.
Because we want to experience life. We want to be able to touch, to feel, to smell, to see, have all the five senses, because it's a sensory overload. And if you're in spirit, if you're out of body, it's like there's a portion of that doesn't get to experience that as though if you were in body.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And what a mystery that is, right? That something that has no bounds can experience a certain boundary. Like as much as we can say, you're me and I'm you, and there's a truth there, you also don't actually look like me when I look at you. And I don't look like you when you look at me. Like there is distinction that's happening in this mystery. And I think there's something in the dance of that. I like the dance, those words, because it's more engaging than saying this or that.
Yeah. And that's why I've always admired, the salutations used in other different cultures. Like I use Namaste quite a bit, and the meaning behind that is I honor the divine in you,
right,
and recognize that and honor that. And that segueing into the next question, in today's society with all this going on, it's just everything just seems like we're almost like the human evolution seems to be de-evolving. It's like we're not honoring anybody anymore. What are your thoughts as we move through your experiences as we're moving into this, and what your thoughts of where we're going?
There's such great questions because people in general, at least many of the people I serve, and there's many, have a fair amount of ongoing stress, in the form of anxiety or insecurity that's in a way well-founded, because as human beings, I think we're wired to have a sense of I belong, I have security, I give and receive love, I can express myself. There's so many things that I think are part of our essential nature that the world around us as a collective is breaking down around all of that. My bigger take, and I kind of shy away from large generalized statements because I feel like my call is immediate: to embody love, to inspire love, to reflect love where I see it, to call it on, to encourage it, to facilitate it. And from there, I don't think I need to have the big picture in some ways that we want to look at. But I do have the belief that part of what is involved right now with what's happening is we are still highly motivated by fear. And in my estimation, I think we're a bit like a 3-year-old in the evolutionary process. And we have a little bit of a delusion to think that we're either adults or older adolescents. That we have a bit more
children.
autonomy. But what would you ask of a 3-year-old? Would you expect a 3-year-old to understand certain things? There's a lot you wouldn't expect of a 3-year-old. So I have a lot of compassion, but that is a view that I have. And I also have a view as an ultimate optimist and experiencer of the divine that form will, one way or another, become the fullness of consciousness. How it's going to happen, I have no idea. We may all be destroyed and come back as fireflies, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Or back in the ape,
Yeah.
Just like, oh man. Uh, Now, explain to our audience the work that you're currently doing, starting with your book, which is actually is currently out,
It's out. It's out.
um,
I'm
and you're
very
going to be
excited.
doing some signings and some get-togethers and stuff like that, and some events. Explain a little bit about that.
And thank you so much for giving me such a window to. So, because my life is all about this fidelity to my inward, to source at my center, I have found over the years that my form of service has that constant, but has new iterations. And I think that's true for most of us,
Yeah.
right? We have a beginning, a middle, and an end to many of the things that we give ourselves to. And so with the lockdown, I shifted my attention to serve locally. But up to that point, and now beginning again, I'll begin to make myself available to travel, to work with people and groups to offer inspired messages. I do keynotes and come into big organizations, churches, spirituality centers, and even just small groups and lead retreats. So that's all very active again. I'm beginning to book that all out. And private sessions. I take a certain amount of people. I used to do that almost full time, and now I take a certain amount of people, and that can be a deepening work where the people I work with get to presence the movement of spirit within themselves.
Wow.
And then from that place, they develop the capacity and the skillfulness to actually live from that place consistently, which is very exciting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So my two books, excited about the poetry book, Beloved Found, Poems from the Source, is
Wow.
available on lulu.com, and I can send you those links. They're on my
Yeah.
profile now,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful I've got a copy because I can kind of flash it up on
Yeah.
these podcasts. The other book that was published a week and a half ago is still en route to me, and it's called Miracles in the Naked Light. And it's number 2 in a trilogy. And it gives a very dramatic story when I was a monastic nun and I was in solemn vows. So if you're not familiar with monasticism,
Hmm.
and especially Christian monasticism, uh, and I'm no longer with any lineage or tradition, you take vows for life. So I thought I was going to be in that monastery for the rest of my life,
Wow.
in silence, chanting, meditating, living off the land. And obviously, my spirit path had something else in store that I
Yeah.
had not intended.
You
But
had an oath of silence. You had to give an oath of silence.
it's not a vow of silence, but you live
Oh.
in silence in community to support everyone communing with the
Mm.
beloved. And then there would be one time a day when we would talk, we'd sit and
Yeah.
laugh and be silly and all
Wow.
that. But Paul, it opens up all of the other ways we communicate. I didn't find any lack through not using these vocal cords. Psychic abilities magnify, intuition magnifies, immediate information in the field comes to you. I would know when a sister would pass away, even if she was on the other side of the monastery,
Wow.
immediately. So it's a real great adventure. But that second book fleshes out an amazing story. I joined a fledgling community from the mother house, and I was out in the back meditating in the wildflowers and was longing for silence, just was
Yeah.
longing for it. I was on fire. And I heard build the permanent monastery. And of course, it was so sweet when we have those little inspirations, like, oh, so I get this massive yes. And I had no idea that meant you're going to build the monastery. You are going to be the general contractor. You're going to be the way most of the supplies and contractors come. You are going to be part of the architectural design. I had no idea. But that big yes opened me to the download of being able to do it and understanding the project in its entirety.
Yeah.
And it was massive. It was 17,000 square feet.
Wow.
Yeah. So the book goes into the really delicious story of me as that young nun giving a yes into another yes into another yes. And it penetrates to the deeper experience that everything is grace, because this life doesn't always feel that way,
Mm.
that everything is grace. But because my focus was on one thing only, I experienced everything as grace, the biggest joys, the biggest challenges. So the book takes you into the heart of that evolution on the inside,
Yeah.
and not so much like a teaching tool, but more like, as for me, so for you. You know, my hope is people will taste it in themselves when they read it, and feel the the beauty and the lightness that comes from touching in on that place for ourselves. So that's available now. The print and ebook is available, and the audiobook should be available sometime next week. We did them all at once, so it'd be easy.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah,
That's
and
something, right?
there, yeah, there's, and I could feel it. I could feel it in the collective that so many people that see it, they see the light, but with the fear that's thrown in our laps and that's everywhere, and they know where they want to be.
Yeah.
They're trying to get there, but they don't know how. They're like, I want to be there, but how? I would assume that you have these tools that you're offering people to find that.
I do. I do. And I consider myself a continual learner in the field there too, because if we're going to be a friend to others on their path, it takes the continual cultivation to be able to hear where spirit is moving, right? And be the agency and the instrument to reflect or offer the right word or tool. But I have been devoted to that development in many ways. First, because that's my path. And second, in my formation, I have a strong seminary formation that focuses on that freedom and liberation.
Yeah.
And I'm trained in a lot of other things as well. Yes, and I have online courses, but I think the working one-on-one is so powerful for all of us. I don't know if you have somebody that you consider almost like a mentor or a reflector, but it sets up a container that's like a catalyst
Yeah.
so that we can move even more quickly in the direction of living that way.
Wow. Yeah, it's I've had a lot of mentors, and I continuously have more mentors. And to be honest with you, along with being honest with my audience, is just about every guest that's been on the show is a mentor of mine.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because I honor all of the viewpoints, the teachings, the knowledge, and it's a takeaway from myself, and acts as a mentoring point as well as for the listeners, because there's so much information on every show as well as this one.
Yeah.
It's every show is like a yellow brick for that yellow brick road getting to that thing. It's like there's so many different things to learn.
I love that, and you get to be in that juicy space, right?
Yes.
Right? I have a little envy, a good envy, like a happy for you envy.
And too, it's like, you heard this voice, you heard this energy, the spirit tell you, build it, build something, build this, and they will come. That's pretty much how this show started. I heard this from spirit, from the divine was telling me, start a radio show.
Wow.
And that's what happened. And 5 years since 2015, that many years, now it is what you see it today.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, would you consider yourself an intuitive, a medium, or a psychic?
I'm definitely an intuitive, and that's very operative in the work I do. I do participate in gifts of psychic and mediumship, but I don't cultivate those gifts.
Yeah.
So, like, I have had Well, I remember one time I was doing a healing session for somebody, and she had come to me because her best friend was her mom, and her mom had died 2 years earlier.
Mm.
And she was really sad because everybody she knew had had visitations by the people they were close to. And her mom, at least according to her, hadn't shown up in her life.
Wow.
2 years, and they were best friends, and she was longing for communication. She was longing. And what happened is we set up to do a healing session, and I was doing a combination of things. But at one point, when she had her eyes closed and I was doing a little laying on of hands, I put my hands on her, and I could feel the presence of her mom. I had shapeshifted into her mom.
Oh.
Yeah, so she got to physically feel her. So those gifts are very alive in me, but I don't seek to develop them or say, I can do this for you or I can do that.
Yeah.
Just at the service of spirit, they come alive where it's needed.
Yeah, the divine steps in and goes, yes, this needs to happen at this
Yes.
particular time and place.
Yeah. And how would that be to feel the physical touch of your best friend? Like physical, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially hearing too. Maybe not only touch, but actually hearing the voice,
Yeah.
of your mother or father that had passed,
Right.
it's like, whoa, what?
So consoling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
consoling.
amazing. It's like, wow. Now when people hear, nun or convent in certain, and in any religion, especially the Catholic religion, was there any like conflicts or anything going on, within or outside? Because people think, mediumship or psychic work or energy and stuff like that is kind of, that's against the that's against the religion. Have you had
Right.
any conflicts happen when
Wow. Yeah, in some ways, yes. So, I grew up in a family that was active with charismatic gifts. We just happened to be part of a Catholic movement what was alive with prophecy, tongues, laying on of hands, a real active prayer.
hmm
And so those kinds of gifts were very natural in my life. When entering monastic life, in entering a lifestyle that had such a high degree of silence, any differences of opinion didn't really matter. When I was first in the monastery, because I was in silence and
yeah,
I was just there to experience the beloved and love the people around me. So there really wasn't a dialogue of what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But there were little things that would happen that would let me know that I was in a much more conservative community than I was
yeah,
in my practice. And then that came a little bit more to the fore after solemn vows. You can read actually some of that in my book, because as I started to get called into a little bit of leadership, not the leader, but into roles that assumed more responsibility, I had to butt up against, gosh, I don't stand for that. What do I do? I'm
yeah,
being asked to assent to this, and I don't actually believe that. And that did probably till the inner soil for me. Now, for the most part, I didn't need to really compromise myself, but there were places where I felt like I did for the sake of my vows. And that caused a little bit of inner turmoil for me because I was experiencing the divine in my vowed life. And I was experiencing that the wisdom of the divine within me wasn't matching the yes to the structure.
yeah,
So I had these little conflicts. They didn't lead me to leave because they're secondary to the actual life, but they were there and I did have to wrestle with them. And that's part of the beautiful evolution that happens in the books. It's not only the building project, but some of my own evolution, like what is of the divine?
yeah.
There is grace here. And to come up nakedly, if you will, to face it very honestly.
hmm
So yeah, it's a great point. And we sometimes get these idealistic views, hence all the scandals that happen, that somehow spiritual structures have somehow evolved, right?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
often we misplace our power or misplace our view and say, oh, they must all be angels, or oh, that leader is the holiest thing ever, and over it's destroyed because we
Yeah.
haven't learned that our structures still are coming into the world from a great place of fear. We're still seekers. We're still learning how to even be in community in a way that provides freedom to each other for the
Yeah.
uniqueness of our paths. So, uh, so I wasn't naive that way. I intended to find that in monastic life. I didn't have that view, but uh, it was my own learning and growing in that. And it's a great question because it's so worthy of so much compassion. I mean, true insight leads us to have so much compassion for every person, for their journey, wherever they are.
And it seems too, as we get older, I've had this conversation so many times, and it's been brought up so many times on and off the show. Seems like as we get older, we start to not only get wise, but we start to have more appreciation and more respect towards other people, and start to see the divine in everyone. And we start walking away from the ego. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that you have that experience, and I love that I've seen many people have that experience. I think as we get older, we tend in directions that remain open, or we tend in directions that can kind of anchor down in.
Yeah.
A no more. Like, I've grown this much,
Yeah.
no more.
Yep. This is the chapter of my life. It's called No BS.
Yeah.
No more BS.
You know what's interesting is that I like to play with the idea of how much the cosmos is a series of patterns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're a pattern as a individual. There's patterns on all these different overlapping layers, and it takes all these patterns to contribute to the evolution. So even when there's resistance to evolution, somehow that resistance is an opportunity where other evolution is going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and in a school, non-dual Shaiva Tantra that I love from the 1200s, love their languaging. They situate the concept that all creation as consciousness is either awake or ignorant, and everything is on the spectrum somewhere within.
Yeah.
So not awake and asleep, or good or bad, or right or wrong, or dark or light. They kind of soften it and invite us into a little bit more intimacy to understand that wherever there is not awakeness to the divine, it's just simply ignorance. I don't know. I like that language.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, with your book, Miracles in the Naked Light, what's unique and important about this book in today's world?
There's a couple things. On the real human level, you're getting to read a book about an individual who gave her whole heart and self to God and let that play out in the story of her life, and did so within a structure that not everybody's comfortable with. And it hopefully offers encouragement, because our structures fall so short. And yet here you can see in a real story that there's grace operative for this individual within this structure, even though the structure falls short. And I think that can be a source of encouragement and can offer some clarity when we're confused about how to go forward in life. You know, should I stay or should I go? And, all these decisions that we have, that's unique in this time. It's a story of hope where there has been so much trauma in the Western psyche around religion.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't skirt the reality of that. You're going to have examples of some of it happening. In my third book that's written, you'll have an even more dramatic example of where those things happen, that trauma. But facing it straight on, you can experience that there is a way through.
Yeah.
So I think our Western psyche could use some care, some TLC around the woundedness we have with polarization and divisiveness around religion. That's one piece. The second is that it really taps on what the potential is a part of our essential nature. And again, you mentioned, in today's day and age and with the fear that's there and the deconstruction of what was secure, we need to find places of true inspiration that's solid and that's relatable. And I think the book offers that opportunity if the person is willing to say, oh, I can find in me what she found in her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those are, and then the third is it's such an inspiring, you should take a look at some of the pictures. It's such a beautiful building. If you're just interested in like beauty, the building project itself is just fascinating. And it's funny because my publisher, so I remember an immense amount of detail, even though this happened, oh my gosh, like 26 years ago, 27 years. I mean, I still remember like the contractor that came to drop the rebar off that we used for the administrative building. So, and it's just fun, right? To see all of that amazing goodness come to create a building that stands for all the love that went into it by the hundreds of people involved.
Yeah. And it reminds me too, just talking about it and feeling the energy coming from you, I'm imagining and remembering the stories about, all the cathedrals that were built in Europe, by the Freemasons and Masons and brick masons and all. It's amazing. And when you look at those, you're there in person, you're like, oh, you can imagine the amount of energy, soul,
right,
and heart that went into those. It's amazing.
Yes, it is so amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And we've lost it. It's like, what happened to it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the churches that I see built now, it's a pole barn wrapped in wood or metal. That's like, really?
Right. I know our sense of the importance of beauty. When I went to an awesome school for seminary. I mean, it was so progressive, and I got to take courses all around Washington, D.C. at other universities and quilt work my focus together. But one of the courses I took was called The Theology of Beauty.
Wow.
And how foundational it is for us human beings to recognize that part of being fully alive is the participation in beauty and the importance of it.
Mm-hmm.
That efficiency can't come before beauty. It can't replace, right? And you're talking a little bit to that. And the second, the willingness to go into materials used and symbols used and to recognize that these all have effects upon us physiologically and psychologically.
Yeah. The energy that's felt, the difference between going into a shed compared to a huge, massive stained glass, and it's like, yeah.
Right. I was leading, I know he won't mind me sharing this story. I won't name him. But I had an assistant help me. I was leading a retreat in Spain, taking two 1400 Spanish mystics and taking their poetry and going to the places where they wrote the poetry, which was really awesome. And we were in this small town before the retreat started. I think it was Burgos. But anyway, there was some monastery there, a Benedictine monastery, and we went in it. And he didn't grow up Catholic. He had grown up Lutheran, but was no longer felt he was really healing from what he needed to of that particular faith for himself. And so he had a bit of an aversion to the ostentatiousness of these large structures, the kind of the use of money,
Yeah.
giving it to the poor, these real things we wrestle with. Then he went into this monastery, and unknown by me, he had this traumatic experience. And then when we were having lunch, he said, I got it. I got it. I walked into the main cathedral part of the church, and my whole smallness exploded into my bigness.
Wow.
I got as big as the church. It kind of pulled out that spirit in me. He said, I get it. I get why now we do those things. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I felt it. I've experienced it. It's amazing, really amazing. And you it's like you're experiencing God. Yeah.
Yes. Where was your last time that you did?
It was about I think about 3 or 4 years ago, on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
It was the first time that I actually went to church. My mom's like, "Yeah, let's go to church, and let's go to the Eve, the Christmas Mass."
Oh,
Christmas
sure.
Eve.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right." And I grew up raised Roman Catholic, baptized Roman Catholic, and but it's been a long time. And as soon as I walked in, all the stained glass, seeing all the architecture, and as soon as I sat down, it wasn't but a couple minutes. I swear, I felt the presence of Christ. It's like he sat down next to me. I felt him. I heard him. He's like, "Welcome back." And wow, that changed
Wow.
a lot.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
Yeah. And he's like, "You're always welcome." But he's like, "Welcome back."
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. And I started crying. I felt his energy. I felt the love. I felt the warmth. I felt the light. And that moved me. That moved me in such a way. It was like, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I never told anybody that. So that's the first time.
I am so glad we got
On the
to
record.
hear.
Right? That was a true seance. That was a true seance. It's like, seance of the Holy Spirit.
Oh, I love that. I love that story. And such an inspiration, because I can tell that you are a true adventure in experiencing spirit in each person and through their path. And you can name that, and it falls within the universal experience of the divine.
Yeah.
So beautifully, so powerfully.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, how can people find you? I've got you have two websites people can find you. One is at I'll let you call it out.
Oh, that's awesome. So I know scrolling down at the bottom, it's KimberlyBraun.com. That's my name, Kimberly Braun. And the second is EssenceTribe.com. And EssenceTribe.com is the portal to joining an online spiritual community. We're fairly new. It's just 30 of us. But it is a place to explore your truth. It's a place where everything that we create by way of online experience, we do so that you can come close to yourself and discover, what is my spirituality? So that's the framework, if you will. We have mystic meetings, and we have meditation immersions, and we have ways that we do wisdom shares with each other, because I think it's really important. Or let me make a statement. Here's a generalized statement. Most people I run across are never asked deeper questions about their lives, and never given an opportunity to speak about it.
Yeah.
And are in oftentimes situations where they feel intimidated to give words about something so difficult to talk about. We naturally, as human beings, feel inept in a way that shuts down our voices. So this community is about helping people find their voice, and in it, they find their truth in a new way. and grow in their truth and change when they need to change. But my website, KimberlyBraun.com, has videos, has articles, has my online courses. You can connect with me. You can buy my books, my social media platforms. It's just a great house for everything that's happening. The only thing that's not on there right now is my emerging calendar for my bookings.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And you are going to be in Sarasota in the first weekend of January, I believe, correct?
It's either going to be the second or the third.
Okay.
Because the first weekend I'm hosting that Discovering Self Summit.
Yeah.
Second or the third, and I'm deciding right now where to put another booking in Nashville. So as soon as I get that nailed down, I will book in Sarasota. So any of you that listen to Reverend Dr. Paul right in Florida, come on over to Sarasota if you're not too far away.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely let me know. That way we can plug that. We can get that out there in time for January and for the event. And I might take a drive out to Sarasota.
That'd be really awesome. That'd be really awesome.
Yeah. That's a beautiful town. That's a beautiful city. It's amazing.
It is. The way it sits right on the water with that little marina and the bridge, you walk over the water, and it's simple, yet it's eclectic and got a bit going on.
Yep. And there's little hidden places in there along the intercoastal and the beaches and some mangroves and stuff. You're like waiting for a mermaid to jump out of the water.
Yeah. That's so true.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, that's so great. Your conversation with you was so
this is an awesome conversation. I enjoyed it. Awesome conversation.
Would you read a poem from my book?
Yeah.
Are you sure I don't want to
Absolutely. That's what I was gonna ask too, is to close off the show, what would you like to leave as a takeaway?
The takeaway for me would be this, for you, my friends who are listening, known and unknown. Look with the beloved's eyes, and you will see the beloved's face. And that's simple. Return again and again to the beloved that's indwelling, the high self, the source, the spirit, whatever language you might use for that center that is you. Look from that place outward upon all people and all things, and you will see that beloved's face before you. And you will know them. You will know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Is that now you said you had a poem, right?
I can choose one. I'll choose a short one.
Absolutely.
Well, this builds on that line that's
all right.
Kind of fun right now. This comes from an experience I had in 1989. I knew you as I danced wildly in the woods. You were consuming me. You revealed yourself, all-consuming fire. And the eyes that marveled at the elegance of the night, with all its trees and blades of grass reflecting the moon, were yours. I was basking in the divine gaze within me, loving its creation.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Namaste.
Namaste.
Cool. Kimberly, it's been an honor. And
same here.
Welcome back anytime. Any other new books, new projects, anything that's going on that you'd like to share and with our audience again, more than welcome.
Thank you so much. I will look forward to the next time we get to talk.
Likewise.
Okay, blessings.
Namaste, my friend.
Namaste.
Namaste, everybody who's watching Conscious Radio Network's
Yes.
The Seance. And until next week, we will see you once again.